First and foremost, we get together this week at what may prove to be a really unique moment in the history of juvenile justice, a time when, as a country, we are shedding some of the system's worst baggage, including or perhaps especially our unnecessary and often inappropriate reliance on secure confinement, and replace it with the kinds of data-driven, collaboratively derived, and community-based approaches that are common to the best JDAI sites. And as I will discuss at greater length in a moment, monumental shifts are occurring in states as diverse as our host Texas and New York, as diverse as California and Alabama, and that's just to name a few. Putting your work and the work of the JDAI network into this rapidly evolving national context is not only appropriate, it helps to highlight where and why we need to head in the future if our ambitions are genuinely to achieve positive youth development and to improve public safety. The national context also helps to explain much of the content of the conference, and I hope that these comments will clarify that while JDAI's progress has been substantial and sustained, none of us has the right to feel content that we've sufficiently improved the odds for court-involved youth, nor changed the system's policies and practices enough to pass what we at the Casey Foundation would call the My Child test. That is, that standard which asks if the system responses to youth who get in trouble with the law are ones that you all, as parents, would find fair, helpful, and appropriate were it your son or daughter who was arrested and brought before the court. So putting the State of the Initiative comments front and center, hopefully will clarify some of the workshop choices that were made and help you decide which sessions are most relevant to the work in your sites. So let me begin by summarizing what's been happening in JDAI sites. In part, because of our funding partnership with the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, JDAI has been in another period of rapid expansion, and by year's end, JDAI will have a presence in 38 states and the District of Columbia in more than 150 local jurisdictions. Indeed, as states start to scale up this work to new counties, it's difficult for us to keep track and keep count of all the places. But as you can see from the map, if you're not colored in your state, it's sort of like you missed the bus. Collectively, you all represent by far the nation's most widely replicated juvenile justice reform initiative, which raises the question, of course, about why JDAI has been so broadly embraced. And I want to suggest that aside from things like Frank Orlando's boyish good looks, that there's only one plausible explanation, and that is the results that you all have achieved. As summarized in the report that's in your conference binders, the 2010 annual results reports, JDAI sites have reduced reliance on secure detention overall by 42%, with numerous of your jurisdictions posting reductions in excess of 50%. Those of you who operate in the world of corrections, be it juvenile or adult, know that these numbers are a sea change, not a minor fluctuation. On Sunday morning, as I was preparing these comments, I was heartened by an article that appeared in St. Paul, Minnesota, which reviewed at length Ramsey County's dramatic and safe reductions in the use of secure detention and perhaps more importantly, its stakeholders' widespread embrace of key JDAI notions, that we need to detain the right kids, but only the right kids. That adults need to make smarter and more timely decisions when considering confinement. That we need more options, not more cells. That community involvement and support are essential to successful system transformation. Congratulations, by the way, to the folks in Ramsey County on that great coverage and your great achievements. By narrowing the number of youth that you have in secure detention at the time of disposition, JDAI sites have also managed to significantly staunch the flow of cases into the system's deep end, its training schools and youth correction centers, by more than a third. These reductions are a leading factor in the national trend to minimize juvenile incarceration. And at a time when governments at all levels are fiscally stressed, these patterns have served to reduce expenditures on institutions and, in the best of places, reinvested public dollars into less expensive and more effective interventions. Some observers, appropriately so, will wonder whether or not these changes are safe, whether reducing reliance on detention and incarceration increases risks to public safety. The good news from JDAI sites is that deep reductions in juvenile detention have not come at the sacrifice of public safety. Indeed, JDAI sites report public safety improvements virtually across the board. And for skeptics who wonder whether or not these changes simply reflect national trends in juvenile crime rather than the initiative's impact, important new evaluation studies now reveal that when we compare JDAI sites to non-JDAI sites in the same state, we find that detention reductions in the JDAI sites were 5 times greater than their non-participating counterparts, and that public safety improvements were equal to or greater than in the non-participating sites. And Dr. Barry Chrisberg of Berkeley Law School will be here this morning to share with all of you some of these new evaluation findings in one of the workshops.